Hello and welcome back to Run It Back, Australia's #1 Valorant podcast. We are award-winning, actually. I'm not sure if you guys saw, but right after the Esports Awards ended this week, they actually gave us a shout out and officially crowned us that. So I think we can actually legally call ourselves an award-winning podcast now.
Yeah, I'm offline behind the doors, under the table.
Yeah.
Someone slipped you a note that said, "Well done." And we'll take the small W's, because took a lot of L's today, so take all the small W's you can get.
Yes, it's the big topic on everyone's list. The Valorant.
We'll get there.
But we'll get there.
Just a teaser.
Look, if you have an opinion, because I'm sure everyone knows Valorant has an opinion about this, please drop in the Twitch chat. We're checking it all night long, and we're certainly here for an absolutely wild ride. But before we get there, Racket, how are you going?
Very good, mate. I did my pre-podcast routine, made a cuppa, had a shower, so all chill. I understand, as you guys alluded to, a little bit of a teaser tonight may be a little bit controversial for a few folks, but that's why I'm in here to generate some good vibes.
Yeah, I'm actually here.
What's going to be the controversy, though? What do you mean? I would imagine everyone is aligned. Everyone is on the same page here. Is there going to be controversy? I feel like this is like the solidifying moment. This is going to be the moment where everyone comes together. It's going to be, the uniting moment of OC Esports. Surely, no controversy tonight.
I mean, I feel like it's just controversial in the fact that we're all in controversy over it, and we all want to have our voice heard, and what better chance there is than to actually address it like a community like this. There is one very important man, though, that we must get to before we get to the big news, and he is an absolute talent himself, not just on the server. What?
What about my big news? Hold up.
Oh, you want your big news?
Oh, yeah.
Right,
we gotta get there.
What's your big news, Kev?
As I am quitting Valorant to swim. No, I will be swimming, however, over to... we will get there. I will be swimming over to Australia because I decided that the news was so good. I want to be a little bit closer to home and really just feeling, what the common man feels on the ground in Australia. So I'm officially coming over to Sydney to cry with everyone, essentially. We're going to have a big group cry. It's going to be a pity party. You're all invited except for God Jez. He's too much pity already for him. And we're good. We're good. So that's what's going to happen very soon. And hopefully it'll all be lots of fun. So I am, in all seriousness, very much looking forward to coming over to Sydney and not converting to becoming an Australian. I'm still just going to be a Kiwi in Sydney, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't have Australian citizenship. You're not going closer to home. You're coming way further away from home, moving out of home, or moving out of the country. No small step to take. But you know what that means? If he's going to Sydney, that's some real Kevin Racket cuddle party action going to happen. Surely.
Probably with plenty of people. I'm actually trying to get there before the supposed Sydney Valorant LAN just to see if I can attend. But I don't know if the date's going to line up yet, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm going to try and get there. And then for anyone that doesn't watch this podcast, and shame on you, by the way, I'm just going to show up to the LAN and surprise people that aren't paying attention. So,
well, while you're over there, can you also somehow find a way to rescue my Snowball jersey from Racket's wall? That would be great. Thanks.
Yeah. So one day, Rack will turn his camera on. It won't be there. He also won't know it won't be there, but you'll see it, and the two of us will nod at each other.
Just nod.
We will
nod.
We will know, but Racket won't.
See, the reason why I have the blur there is to sort of hide the fact that it's a snowball jersey, but I haven't done a good job with it. So,
my heart.
You didn't just put a mosaic over it. You need to really censor it out. It's too lewd. You can't show it. Yeah,
SFW. Well, Kev alluded to the fact that he's going to swim over, in which case we might not see him until we get a direct invite slot to VCT. But this guy potentially could swim all the way over and be back in time for who knows when. Next event, next LAN. It's one and only Magnetbrain, the former member of Team Pants Down. Hold on. But Josh is saying something. Give me a sec.
Former member, but permanent family member of Pants Down. His pants will forever be down. And they should be, because if you're getting in the pool, don't have any pants on. That's my advice to anyone wanting to get swimming done here. Pantsless is the way to go, trust me.
It's aerodynamic. So it's aerodynamic, You gotta respect the hustle if they're doing that. Although, maybe it's not aerodynamic. Maybe you gotta actually tuck it in. We were talking about this
I'm
earlier.
gonna ask him what style he swims in. 'Cause,
What style?
yeah, no, there's different ways to swim, dude. There's different ways. That's what I'm saying.
Fair enough, Ab.
Well, apparently we're having some technical difficulties quickly in the background, but that we can continue our wonderful discussion about swimming, which we're all very
Swimming
you know,
mood, apparently.
So,
all very. It's good to know that we at least all survived our high school swimming carnivals because we're here to like do this podcast, so we didn't drown.
Let me expand a little bit more about more specific details about what's happening here. So I've decided that been casting with Mac recently, and we got some good synergy going on, and I'd like to work on that synergy a little bit more in person. So I'm actually going to be moving in with Mac specifically. I'm going to start a caster house. Yummy Cheeseman lives there as well, so it's just going to be like a bunch of casters in this house. It's going to be really interesting. So
it's like the one that Custer and Brennan had.
What, like
the seven content house? Is that what they called it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
wasn't that just in the Philadelphia Fusion team house, something like that? In any case, it'll be a thing. It'll be a thing. I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful to have a place lined up for myself, and with people I already know and already respect and already have some rapport with. So that'll be lots of fun, and just looking forward to be a part of Australia and just seeing what's up. I haven't spent that long in Sydney. I've been to Sydney a few times for different events, but never got a chance to like really do too much and just see what life is like. So I'm gonna get plenty of culture in Sydney, I'm sure, for better or worse. And it's either gonna be okay or I'm gonna try and get out of Sydney as fast as possible. But we'll see what happens. We'll see how it goes.
I guess the big question is how does Matt feel about it? How does Pixie feel about it? You're running away from him.
Who gives a fuck is the real answer to that. No, but to speak to that, it is what it is. It's. I think we both had plans to make moves at some point, of our careers. I think we both know that. Look, OCE, as we all know by now. If you don't know, if you're, I've seen some tweets that like are lamenting the fact that OCE are just missing out on X and Y and things. It's like this has been how it's been from day one. I don't agree with it. I don't think it should be that way. But I'm accustomed to it. I'm in terms of the different levels of grief. I'm very, very comfortably in the acceptance part now.
Yeah.
I'm swimming, you could say, in the acceptance part of it, and I've accepted it so firmly that look, it is what it is. But know that within OCE, if OCE is a bit of an esports jail, New Zealand is even more of an esports jail than that. So at least I'm making a slight upgrade here before I look for anything else beyond that. So I think that's the most important thing for now is to try and at least look for that. And then we'll see how things go in future when COVID can start to really improve globally. And then things should hopefully only go up from there.
Well, for a new Sydney sider, you got any recommendations for him, Rack? Where should he hit up?
Yeah, don't drink the water, right, Rack? Is that what you're going to tell me?
Yeah, just don't drink the water and try
because
to survive the
money.
Summer. That's
try and survive the summer.
I have, mate.
So, so I will be drinking only like filtered water indoors. Is really what's going to happen then.
There you go, Af.
Right? Okay, got it. I'll come to you for the tip.
Yeah. Oh, all right. He's back apparently. Yeah, I'm not sure. Apparently, we've got Magna on the other end of the line, and I guess we can give him another quick intro. Oh no, here he is. He's here in the flesh. We get to see him.
Boys.
How you going, mate?
What's going on? Look, I'm shivering, honestly. Now that I've heard that Avril's swapping over to swimming, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep competing, hey? Like, I got no chance.
He's going after your spot on Pants Down, and so you guys left too early, so he has to compete with you somewhere, man.
The problem, Rowan, is I'm too heavy, man. I'll just sink in the water. I do know how to swim. I haven't done it in a long time. But I'm not going to get very far very quickly because I don't have the... I was going to say aerodynamics. What's the equivalent in the water? You can tell me the term. It's not aerodynamics, but it's something about, I want to glide through. You got to be able to glide through the way you can. Perfectly, no hair on the head at all. What's going on here is we have the perfect kind of like of shift between... I'm not gonna say Ducky because his hair's a bit shorter. Mine's a bit longer. I'm going to get it cut soon. But between me and Rowan here, Racket in the middle. Racket's bang in the middle, like he's on his way towards Rowan to Magnetbrain, but he's not quite there yet. So we got the entire spectrum right now. How you can get the hair done. Obviously, you could have longer hair, but in terms of whose hair, this is what I'm talking about.
I mean, Racket's hair is still a mystery to everyone. That man hasn't taken off his hat in 16 episodes of Run It Back. So one day we might get the hatless Racket.
That'll be the very special
Magnetbrain looks great. This is you just gotta. I reckon you just gotta dive straight in. The swimming jokes, the swimming puns aren't gonna end, but you gotta.
He's prepared for this. He's had a week to prepare for this. He's gone. I'm going in all in on the swimming puns. But I guess I want to do 2 introductions for your own. I want to know who Rowan is, because there is a very different side of Magnetbrain and there's a very different side to Rowan, and there is a very different side to Magnetbrain, and 2 very, very different stories that are very interesting. So who's Rowan?
So who's Rowan?
It's a very existential question.
Rowan is a skilled shit poster. Love just posting shitty memes that I find on Twitter. Besides that, I've been a professional swimmer for around 7 years now. On the Australian Paralympic team, I swim and do all that stuff for about 30 to 40 hours a week. It's pretty much a full-time job. I have mild cerebral palsy, which is it's basically brain damage that screws up the ability for my brain to like coordinate and control my muscles. But yeah, like, besides that, I love video games. I played CS for a few years and enjoyed that. Never really saw like the top kind of success. Like we won, like the team I was on, we won CGM, which was pretty cool. Played at a couple of small like grassroots lands and everything. Quit CS a couple of years ago to focus mostly on swimming. And that was great until COVID hit at the start of the year. And then, I was bored shitless and had nothing else to do. So I said, may as well start playing some Valorant. Because that was just coming out in like the beta days back when we were all playing on the North American servers. Because I had nothing to do with my time. I thought, hey, might find a team to play on for a few weeks. And Crunchy actually hooked me up with, I think it was Twiz. Back in like the OG Pants Down days, and trialed off one night of playing with them, and pretty much joined straight after that. And the rest is kind of history. We kicked asses Pants Down. I think we were the longest standing roster, I think, in Valorant so far in the region. Like we made a full like 6 months or something, which is pretty good as far as OCE goes.
In any esport, really, when you look at it.
Except for like like the really high professionals where you're bound by contracts to play together for like a full year. But aside from that, in terms of like fluid contracts, rather fluid team situations where you can swap in and out, it's very long considering how many teams have swapped members, and even regarding contracts, you got teams like Ground Zero that are under contract that end up splitting as well. So even then, teams have not completely stuck together. I think it'll be interesting to see if EXO end up breaking that record, because they've been together as a 5 unit for quite a while now. I believe they're on their way to, I don't know how long it's been, but it might be 6 months soon. But they're probably the next team on the list after Pansound have been together for the longest amount of time. But it's a very admirable feat that you guys managed to accomplish.
Yeah.
We dive too much. Oh, you go.
Oh, no, it's just funny you said that about contracts and stuff, because we kind of had our own contract written up. Like probably about a couple, like maybe 2 weeks after I joined the team, we wrote our own agreement together. Like all of the players and our coach, Crash, who is in chat, we all got together and just said, all right, boys, what do we expect of ourselves? Where do we want to go? And what are we like, what expectations are we going to set on ourselves to perform well? And I think one of the big things with that was we're always going to have just clear, honest communication. And if there's ever any issues or arguments, or like if shit hits the fan one night in scrims, then we don't leave the Discord call until that's sorted out. And that was just great, because instead of just having weird behind the scenes, like he said, she said bullshit and just high school drama, we just kind of got over it. We talked through it. We were honest with each other, and then we could just focus back on, playing the game, which is what we're all there to do in the first place.
Yeah. That's a great way to do it. Like if it that statement itself, Magnetbrain, I think is something that a lot of people should take into account when like first creating a team. That is the perfect way to do it, where you have everyone grouped up and you agree like as a mutual team that these are the goals, these are what we're going to do. We're not going to talk behind each other's back. We're going to stick together and stuff like that. Like that is so incredibly important when first establishing your team, and it proves to be, right? You guys are one of the more long-standing rosters within the scene. That's amazing to see. I really do admire that.
I want to ask then, like, off the back of that, is like, you guys worked with Michelle Payne, the esports psychologist. How big of a help was her on the whole team? Because she's got the background in sports psychology, and it's a kind of a new field that teams are really tapping into. And I remember when we had Crash on the show, God, what would be like 3 months ago? Now, like, he spoke very highly of her and her impact on the team. Like, what is it like working with her, especially coming from a sports background where you probably we've worked with psychologists along the way as well?
Yeah, Michelle is just absolutely bloody amazing, and the amount of respect I have for her is just out of this world. Um, we brought her on might have been about a month or 2 months into the team. And I actually paid for that out of pocket, which was a little bit expensive for me, but like, with COVID meant I had nothing to do with all the money that I saved up. I was going to go on a big holiday after the Tokyo Paralympics, but no chance of that happening.
Yeah.
I just thought that'd be a good way to, spend my money and get something genuinely good out of it. Turned out to be one of the best decisions that I've ever made. Michelle did so much more for myself and the whole team than I think any of us ever really expected, as far as in-game and out-of-game benefits. I don't really want to speak too much about the in-game stuff, because you might need to pay her a few $100 for that. But just a lot of stuff in terms of working with our communication and fine-tuning that kind of performance-specific approach to our performance, because that's what we were all about, and that's what we wanted to do. We said that we wanted to be one of the best teams in the region, so we had to train like that, right? We had to start, making sure that we're always working on the right stuff and always making sure that we're not like getting too heavily distracted and just dick fighting around in scrims or whatever. She was really, really great with just keeping us on track on like both on a nightly basis and then that kind of medium long term over the running weeks and months and everything as well.
Yeah.
What's that?
No, you finish and then I'll bring up something.
Yeah. No, Michelle was just absolutely amazing. Like, for the amount of time that she spent with the team and the value that she brought, like the fact that she hasn't instantly been snapped up by another major roster within like 5 minutes of her leaving pants down is just a crime, honestly. Like, she is just sensational.
So I want to get to where we ended up finishing with Pants Down in terms of the sort of journey you had. So talk to me a little bit about the journey of Pants Down from kind of when you joined and then as you guys got through the tournaments. What was being on that team kind of like, and what was playing over the 6-month period where you had a core five and you had the longest standing roster ever together? What was the Pants Down journey overall like and then we'll get into a bit of what's been happening in the more recent times of where all the members are going and what you're getting up to as well.
Yeah, so I think hands down as a whole, like a lot of the time when it came to competitions and tournaments and stuff, I guess as it happens with sport, shit just happens sometimes. Like a lot of the times we would have like a bad BO1 performance early in a tournament or something and would get thrown to a lower bracket and then would have like these godly lower bracket runs or these massive comebacks and everything. Like, I think there was a game, it might have been versus Rip and Tear, where we were down like 4-11 on bind and we came back to win. And, that was pretty damn awesome. But I think a lot of the time we never saw the major success, like, first, second, like top 3 kind of placings in the tournaments that we could have done. Oh, it was McTeam. Thanks, Crash. Either way, I think that while we never really saw the major top successes, we still did a lot of really good work as a team. As like cliched or cringy as it is to say, we saw a lot of really strong results in our scrims in our practice. And I think that we actually did convert quite a lot of that practice results over into our performances and into the competitions. And it was just, a lot of shit luck and a lot of like individual little things that meant that we never really saw the success that I think we could have. But that's how it is.
I feel like that's like a really big thing as well, is like a lot of people might only remember Pants Down for the fact that they failed to make the top 16 of First Strike, but this is a team that was very, very strong in both of the Ignition Series events and had always been beating around the top of Oceanic Valorant, always in contention for being a top 8 team, at times even a top 4 team. And it's a shame. I guess it is a little bit of a rough one to talk about. It is too soon as we still see the First Strike qualifiers going on, but does it suck to kind of end on that little bit of a low note almost?
In a way it does. I think that a lot of it is more like it wouldn't have been as sucky if there was more competitions around. Like, you know, more chances for us to actually compete instead of just non-stop scrims and everything. Because, you know, we don't train to train. That's just boring. Like, we train to compete, and that's what we're all about. And I think the fact that we had so few opportunities to actually compete made it a lot harder to keep that motivation up, which meant when we had this one big tournament that comes through off of not playing any actual competition that means anything for the previous like 6 to 8 weeks or whatever, then if there's one slip up in that and you like, you know, you fall down or you don't perform too well, you're going to feel like the team's shit and you're going to feel like everything's bad when that's not actually the case. So I think it would be very different if we had more opportunities for competition ultimately. I think that would have had a massive impact on our motivation. I think getting signed to an org and like, you know, getting paid a couple bucks to play would have been a nice motivating factor as well. But I think that, you know, money only gets you so far, and just having more competitive opportunities would have made a massive difference.
I was going to add to what Ducky said by saying, you know, like you guys had always been a fan favorite, and I hesitate to use like, you know, the underdog card here, but it's kind of one because as you sort of mentioned, you guys one of the few unsigned teams that were doing really well as well. So I mean, I think you guys were always, you know, a bit of a fan favorite to make it far, and at the same time, you guys were probably the team outside of my own at the time where I probably had the most. I guess I wanted to see you guys do well the most outside of my own team at the time. So definitely have a lot of affinity for you guys back then. But talk to me a little bit about, you know, how you guys came to the decision to kind of let it go as a team that's been together for so long. Like obviously you finished. You completed your run in First Strike for better or worse, and you talked a little bit about the fact that there weren't too many other things happening at the same time. So, you know, after finishing First Strike, you guys got together and kind of what's going on there, and how did you guys eventually make the call?
I think we saw it coming a couple of days and probably about the week before we made the decision. But it's really just like not having a lot of motivational stuff in game, and then seeing like the OPL dissolving and everything, and you know, seeing how absolutely wonderful Riot have been with their communication about the scene, and their support for us. Like a lot of that just made it really hard for us to justify putting a lot of that time and a lot of that effort in. For myself personally, I reached a point where for me in sport, I got to put 100% in. I'm way too competitive to say, all right, I'm going to put 90% in for my swimming and I'm just going to miss that 1.5 hours of sleep so I can fit that scrim time in or whatever. It's like, I can't justify do that. I got to be kind of all or nothing. And I just kind of hit that point where I couldn't justify to myself continuing to do all of the scrimming and all of the prac where we didn't have enough opportunities to actually make anything off that. And, you know, swimming isn't just a sport for me. It's also my job. You know, it pays my bills and everything. And am I going to pick the sport that I could see success in, but is currently giving me $0 a year? Or am I going to pursue harder the sport that's putting a roof over my head? I think that's kind of a pretty easy call to make. I still think that there was a lot of like undiscovered potential that I had in myself personally in the game. It just came down from, you know, not having that extra time. Unfortunately, there's not 48 hours in a day. There's only 24. But just not having that extra time to really put into the game. I think a couple of the other boys were kind of in the same boat with, you know, just needing work, you know, needing to make money so that they can keep living, full stop. So it's just hard, you know, it's the grind.
Yeah. And I mean, it's completely obvious from what you said there, Magnetbrain, that you're an extremely hard worker and dedicated so much towards that sort of phase within Valorant. So, skipping, of course, to the present now, what is next for you personally? Are you just going to be fully invested, 100%, a million percent into your swimming now, with no regard for Valorant whatsoever? Or
I mean, 21's around the corner. Tokyo 21,
yeah,
which is
of course.
Yeah, touch wood. Hopefully, it actually bloody happens. Who knows, really? But I think for right now, just over like running through till the end of the year, all my eggs are in the swimming basket. I've got national short course swimming champs on this weekend, and then in 3 weeks' time, I've got Queensland state champs, and they're like my 2 last big comps for the year. So I think this has actually been very good timing for me personally, stepping back from playing just to focus on competing well. I think as far as Valorant goes for next year, I've got a couple of little things in the pipeline that I'm not too sure how much I can speak about on here. But that'll be pretty exciting. I still want to be involved in the scene in some aspect. I don't think I have the time to commit to doing it as a player. But maybe doing like some form of commentating or observing or something where I can still use the skills that I've spent, hundreds and hundreds of hours over the past,
Coach
few
Magnet?
months developing. Coach Magnet. That's an interesting one, maybe, but coaching might come down to the same thing. I can't stay up for the late nights because I got to be up at 4:30 6 mornings a week. It just kind of, that one's a bit rough, but you never know. We'll see what happens. I'm definitely not gone and I'm not out of Valorant. So yeah, I guess just watch this space.
And I guess like there's also another thing that I want to ask you. We'll do this to wrap it up before we throw over to some VCT stuff. But you mentioned that you hit some of the stuff that you want to achieve in Valorant, and now you're going back full-fledged into swimming. Not that you ever really stopped. What do you want to like? What is the goals now in the pool?
So my big goal in the pool is to swim 49 seconds for the long course 100 meter freestyle. No person with a disability has ever swum faster than 50.86 seconds. And my personal best right now is 50.94. So I'm almost fastest in the world, which is pretty cool. But I want to get that 49 because it'll be a pretty freaking awesome milestone to beat. Once I get that, which will hopefully be by the end of next year, who knows where I'm going to go from there. Even if it's shifting away from swimming and moving into esports a bit more full time, like who really knows? I just love competing, and in whatever capacity, I'm still going to be competing. But yeah.
I reckon you could. I reckon you could shave off a half second per eyebrow there. So if you just get rid of both of them, that's a full second gone. A little bit at the top you can get rid of as well, and then you're straight there. You're gone. You're zooming through.
Yeah, good idea. Hey, just drop the racing suit. I'll just race in the nude. So then that little bit of weight reduction is just going to be even faster.
We were talking about this before the show. All right. So what is the more dynamic position? Is it tuck or untuck?
Tuck or untuck? You got to tuck, mate. You got to tuck.
It makes sense, but it's just the question that you've got to ask.
Mind you, the racing suits are so ridiculously goddamn tight that it basically tucks it for you. Like really.
They're really nice. They're looking out for you. They're looking to shave those little milliseconds off your time. So
yeah, exactly.
That's how it is, mate. This is how we race.
Yes, Speedo's looking out for you, but they want that 49 for you.
They crush you literally to make sure you can crush it in the pool.
Absolutely.
Speaking about getting crushed, Ducky, here we go.
Oh yeah, look, there is quite a bit of look. Depending on way you take it, the news this morning was crushing with the announcement of the Valorant Champions Tour. If you did miss the announcement this morning, Joshua will wonderfully put up the 2.5-minute announcement video featuring Waylon Magus, the a global esports director for Riot Games, talking about the new global Valorant Champions Tour for 2021. Well, apparently Kev's run off. I don't. He's left the building. That's how angry he is over this announcement.
Wow.
He's left the building. So I guess the bigger, deeper explainer before we dive into the discussion about this is Valorant is now wholly and solely under the control of Riot, basically, in terms of how they want to structure their esports ecosystem. The Valorant Champions Tour is very much. Here he is. He's coming back.
He's back.
Welcome back,
Oh,
mate.
it wasn't like a 2.5-minute video. It was like, oh, I got time, man.
Oh, I think Josh lied to us, mate. So
Did he?
we'll
Oh
blame
my
that one
God,
on him.
I hate being lied to. I hate having my expectations crushed like that.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, so now that you guys are all caught up,
I was
Ducky,
just going through an explainer. Yeah,
get into it, mate.
Yeah, so there's now 3 tiers of play. You've got Challengers, Masters, and Champions that will run throughout the year, starting from February to December. The Challengers level is the lowest level, featuring domestic competitions from all the major regions across the globe. Unfortunately, Oceania is not considered a major region, so that our status in terms of Challengers is yet to be decided. Basically, this is like regional leagues that will lead to qualifications for the international level master tier events. Of which there'll be 3 throughout the year. Think of them, I guess for me, from a Siege background, they're kind of like the 3 yearly majors that we have. If I guess they can also be comparable to like a CS:GO event, your Katowice and those other things, your Colognes. And then you're looking forward to, at the end, the champions, the big dance, which is the top 16 teams across the world, making it to a massive 2-week event, basically on the same scale of League of Legends World Championship. That's what Riot have said they wanted to create for Valorant, is an event on a similar scale to the League of Legends World Championship, and they're looking at delivering on that in December of 2021. That's the general look at how the Valorant Champions Tour ecosystem will work. Champions will feature 16 teams from across the world, and so will each individual Masters tournament. OCE teams currently will be able to make it through the North American events, but there are very few details currently available about how the OCE structure will work. But I think generally, first, I want to get this out of the way. I think we should talk about the esports structure as a whole. Coming from Siege, this is a very similar structure to what Ubisoft has implemented for this year onwards. And I think it's a structure that, for the predominant number of players around, actually works, because it's got good local development into lots of international play, into one major tournament at the end of it all to really decide who the best in the world is. It's a shame that things like COVID have happened, but in principle and in a normalized world, I think it's a really great structure. But I'm interested to hear, I'll start with you, Rack, what you think about it.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think having, especially for like a casual viewer, it's nice to have different tiers to understand like what is the difference between X and Y, right? So having different acknowledgements of, okay, this guy or this tier is better than this tier, and just building it up towards the end of the year. I feel like that's always the coolest type thing, and building up to a late tournament at the end of, what was it, December 2021, with the League of Legends type worlds vibe to it. I mean, that's really cool. I really dig what they do there. And Siege, similar to that format, has found success with it too. So I'm more happy with that type of stuff.
This is a great format. At a top-down level, when you look at this one, and ignore the OCE part for now. We will zoom in on that later. But if you just look at the top-down, you just acknowledge the format in a vacuum, it's great, because you essentially have kind of everything. Well, for the most part, you have everything that you kind of want for a game like this, where you're kind of meeting in the middle between what a CS:GO circuit might look like with majors. We kind of get the majors with the Masters events. Yeah, you get the World Championship as well. You get the kind of the League of Legends World's Finals there. So it's not quite like in League of Legends, we have 2 splits. You play an MSI, you go to Worlds. Here, you're doing a bit more of a quote-unquote circuit. And it is, like you said, Ducky, very close to what Ubisoft are doing with Siege. And I really like what Ubisoft are doing with Siege in terms of their format. I think it's a great format. I think you look at the capability for having international events. You get 4 of those per year. You get 4 of them here. 3 majors, Masters events, they're basically majors. You play the Worlds as well. And a lot more opportunities for, in theory, teams from smaller regions like OCE or Turkey or CIS or whatever to go to an international event, because otherwise, if you're playing League of Legends, you can go to MSI and Worlds, and that's about it. So I think this is much more of a broad kind of format globally, and that makes a lot more sense. And more international events is always a good thing. And overall, it looks very slick, and I'm very happy with how it's presented in terms of the plans for 2021. And honestly, it meets my expectations fully. I'm very pleased with how Riot have handled that part of things.
I mean, coming from a CS:GO background, Magnet, like this is kind of what you were hoping Valve would ever want to implement if they ever cared about CS:GO.
Yeah, I think it actually looks really exciting from a player perspective, seeing that there's more definition between the different like tiers of competition, I guess. Compared to where Valorant has been at for the past few tournaments, where it's like just these massive open slather things where the only way to make a distinction between any of the teams is like, hey, we placed top 8 or we only placed top 16 or whatever. Now you can actually say that, oh, we were one of the teams in this like closed group for this middle or this higher tier. And that can kind of help make the players and the rosters look more valuable to orgs and to sponsors and stuff. So I think a lot of that has potential to be really, really great for the players. And it's nice just to have structure in terms of saying, okay, these are the major competitions that we have each year, and these are the dates. So we know we can spend this entire block of just scrimming and just focusing on our own play. And then since you know when the next big comps are going to be, you can say, all right, in this couple of weeks, we're just going to be doing lots of shit on anti-stratting and everything. And you can break up your training to be a lot more specific over that period of time. I think it's awesome. I think they've done really well with it.
I guess it also adds on some stability because currently with Valorant, it feels like we've had like maybe 3 months where we know like, okay, there's going to be events. Like, first was Ignition Series. All right, cool. 3 months, we know there's going to be an event. First Strike, cool. We know that like for this next 3 months, there's going to be some events. I feel like having the year-long calendar, one that's probably going to be locked in for not just 2021, but 22, 23 and beyond, makes it a lot easier, not only for, yes, you can figure out maybe some org representation, you can figure out how you want to lay out your training schedules into tournament prep, into that kind of thing. But it just gives you a little bit of a wider view of like, okay, this game's actually going somewhere.
Yeah, and I think it gives you that motivating factor as well, because it means you always know, okay, this is the next step, this is how long I've got, so I need to be putting everything towards getting ready for this competition. It's a lot better than, waiting through having no idea at all when the next comps is going to be, so you're just scrimming for the sake of scrimming for like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
I will say really quickly on this format, it's probably one of the best possible, like, I'm not even going to say compromise, but one of the best things that Riot can do when they a type of developer and publisher that wants to keep everything quite in-house. So this is the kind of thing where I don't think we can ever expect to have like a CSGO circuit where in a third-party circuit, you can have all these different majors and all these different kind of international events, but with the Riot kind of focus here, where they want to be the ones kind of running the show, they've kind of got the middle ground going here where they're saying, okay, well, how can we emulate like a sort of major circuit best we can, but keep it all in-house, and while still doing a lot of international events, and this is kind of like the result of that. And I'm honestly looking at it from that lens, I'm quite pleased with where we landed. So overall, again, on a real top level, like a top down kind of level, everything looks fine. But when you zoom in, though, we'll have to talk about that in a sec.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing that we should look at is actually the seeding for the Masters Tiers events and the Challengers Tiers events, because they're basically the same. 16 teams will be invited from across the globe to both events. NA has 3 seeds off the top of my head, which includes a chance for OCE to make it in. Europe, Middle East, and Africa, which also includes like Russia, Turkey, the MENIA teams, they have 4 slots. So the top 4 from their Valorant challenges in every split will make it to the Masters tier events. Brazil gets 2, Korea gets 2, Japan gets 2, Southeast Asia, which includes Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, and all those nations around there that have been tied into the first strike currently. They get 2 slots between them, and the winner of Latin America also makes the Masters tier events. So there's no direct slot for OCE. And also, we've been funneled into the NA region, which is akin to what Riot has done across TFT and League of Legends now, is that we now are considered part of NA, not part of APAC, which we are considered in other games. And that's got its ups and downs, primarily the downs. Because NA is a long way away for a lot of people. For me in Perth, I remember when I was playing League of Legends back in Season 2, when there was no Oceanic servers, we played on 230 ping. And that playing 230 ping, an FPS on 230 ping, especially an FPS like Valorant, is painful. It's not necessarily unheard of. Like, there are pros in Overwatch who constantly play ranked play on NA and Korean servers, and I'm pretty sure there's still that very famous story of Trill trialing out for the Dallas Fuel on 300 ping while he was in Broome. But even then, that's not something that you want to be locked into as a player as your only hope for making one of those big international events.
Should we talk quickly about like what is life now for OCE for Valorant? Like, what is the expectation now as an OS player to try and make it next year? So we're going to finish First Strike here, and then I assume there's probably not going to be anything. If there is, it's going to be fairly minor. There's not going to be any like massive tournament for the rest of the year. I don't think. I might be wrong, but essentially nothing to the scale is kind of what I mean here. So as we get into next year for Challenges, Masters, and Champions, I assume that, you know, based on what we're reading here, and Ducky, you'll be the one to kind of correct this. But the kind of small text, if you look at the announcement, says OCE teams will have qualification paths through NA events. So how do we kind of interpret this one? Like, what does that mean to everyone? Like, how do we look at that and think like what that essentially requires teams to do?
But when we're looking at that, we also have to take that in context with some tweets that came out from the league commissioner or the esports commissioner at Riot Games, Chris Greeley, who came out with some tweets today saying that, I'm just going to quote him here, we intend to provide both the domestic Valorant scene through local tournament organizers in OC in 2021, RFPs, I think that's just franchising partners or something like that, coming soon, as well as a path, albeit not a direct path, to champions. Now, the way that I read that is for challenges, OC likely will just be seeded into NA. But I feel like from there's also going to be domestic events that could potentially influence the seeding for NA challenges. There might be a chance where there is an OCE exclusive open qualifier, and that means that we get some teams into the NA challenges on top of the other NA teams. And, you know, that gives them a chance to perhaps make Masters, you know, whether they fly over and they compete in NA, which, look, let's be real, doesn't look like a desirable outcome for anyone who doesn't want to get sick currently. Or they just have to cough up and play on the 180 ping.
I mean,
when it comes around,
you might not even be able to afford it. Like, it's a cost as well.
Yeah. All right. Request for proposals. Thank you, Laura. I'm not a project manager or anything like that, but you were. So thank you so much for clearing that up. And when it comes down to champions, I feel like that means OC is going to have a path to potentially take that last chance qualifier slot from NA. That's going to be, I think, our best path to making an international event is at champions.
Which, to clarify, by the way, what you mean by that is saying essentially that if there is a way because OC is going to have to play through NA, that means unless you're willing to fly to NA, which no one's going to do unless you've got a bunch of money somewhere, you're going to be playing on high ping. If you're from New Zealand, maybe you're lucky you play on 140. If you're unlucky, you play on 180 or even more, maybe 200 plus. And essentially, last chance qualifier in your example here, Ducky, would probably mean like you, after all the Masters are done and all the good NA teams or like the top tier NA teams are qualified through, now we're kind of fighting with our best OCE team on high ping might be able to play against kind of more middling NA teams to try and get a chance. And I think that's probably how I'm interpreting that, as maybe that's the opportunity for an OS team to, on high ping, that is, try to get through to champions.
Yeah. And I think the thing is as well, and it's horrible to put things like this in perspective, but OC is far from the only region that's affected by this, and far from the only region that is in and outcry about this. When you're looking at the likes of Russia and Turkey, Russia with a very, very, very storied history in CSGO, don't have the same direct path. And while ping isn't as big of an issue for those two regions when they're qualifying through Europe, it's still something that, you know, they have to consider, that they don't actually have a direct path through to those big events, because they're technically listed as a CIS or a Turkey team. And so they have to play through their regional events before they can even consider playing in the EMEA.
By the way, EMEA, the A is Africa. So if you're in South Africa, you're part of EMEA. So imagine playing on European servers from South Africa. I don't know what the ping is, but it's probably not great. So
Nasty.
South Africa is also like traditionally another region that gets shafted really hard, just geographically, for esports, because you're literally on the bottom of the African continent, and I mean, it's just hard. It's just really, it's tough. So, you're absolutely right. OCE is not the only one, but OCE traditionally, I think we've always had a tough road. It's also a little bit of a shame because, you know, I'm not going to speak to other regions here, but OCE has had support in some ways in the past with stuff like OPL. I think it's the combined sort of, you know, events of the past X amount of months where things have been slowly chipped away. That is kind of, you know, adding to the hurt a little bit, I think.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, Magnet. Obviously, there, I guess for a team like you guys at Pantsdown, you know, making it to an international event, I guess for most Australian teams is the ultimate goal. Because yeah.
Well, there's no internet. I don't think there's going to be any Aussie teams going for international stuff, like to North America at least, for the foreseeable future. Like, I just struggle to see a world where, like, you'd be fighting pretty hard with the government to get clearance to go to America, considering there's, like, you know, cases with 1 million, like states with 1 million plus cases, and you know, all that's kind of going to shit for the time being. Who knows? I think besides that, we do have a really, like, we got a shit run as a country and as a region, and I think that there are other regions like South Africa, as you said, that are going to have some struggles and they don't have that same direct path. But that doesn't really take away from the fact that, you know, we are still getting shafted here. I think it's really disappointing because not just in esports, but in sports as a whole, Australia and I guess Oceania in general, we do really, really goddamn well. Even considering our geographic isolation, considering like our population size and that, like in esports, you know, you think of the Berlin Major where you have for CS in 2019, you have Greyhounds almost getting out of groups, and you have Renegades making top 4. Like, you know, off of an Oceanic team who are in here being treated as an afterthought. There's a lot of talent. You look at other team-based traditional sports, you have histories of like the hockey teams, water polo teams winning gold medals at the Olympics. You've got like 11 or 12 Australian athletes and players in the NBA. Like, there is a lot of talent in this country in sports and in esports. There's a lot of people that are just really driven to win and driven to compete and be good. And it's just shit that it feels like they're saying that we're not good enough and we're not worthy of that recognition and of that opportunity. And we're just going to, you know, find some other way to shoehorn you in somewhere, when the reality is Aussies are fucking good, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the population one is the big one that I always look back to. So when you look at the combined populations of Australia and New Zealand, that's 30 million people. When you look at NA, considering Canada, Mexico, and the US is generally considered NA, Mexico in some departments is considered LATAM, but I don't know what riots, considering them right now, is around 500 million. You look at Europe as a whole, if you wanted to throw in Russia as well and Turkey, that's 1 billion people. OCE as a whole is way tinier than any other region in the world. But we've still somehow managed to like perform in other esports. The one that always picks that I throw back to is Rocket League, where we've historically had the most amount of success. And I guess the other point about travel restrictions to the US, I mean, we're still seeing the impacts of that in other esports titles, like the news yesterday with the Fury PUBG team, who weren't given an invite slot to the PUBG Global Invitational because of what PUBG Corp said were the government's travel restrictions limiting the Fury boys to actually make it out to South Korea and then home. To which Fury said, well, PUBG Corp didn't consult us. So, you know, we've seen Legacy go over to Worlds. There's probably the chance that maybe a Valorant team could head over to NA and compete. But there is, for now, for the foreseeable future, that difficulty of maybe they won't be able to come home. And then what if happens over there? And that's just even assuming that they can even make it over with the funding that OCE teams have nowadays.
I mean, I don't think that for one part, I'm going to clarify something here as well. Is I don't yes, if you can make it to NA and play on even ping, that would give you the best chance to qualify. But if you actually did qualify for champions, I don't think that champions are going to take place in NA. Looking at how things are, There's just no way. Champions,
No.
the actual worlds for Valorant, is probably going to be somewhere in Asia. They'll probably look to do it in Shanghai. They could do it in Shanghai off the back of worlds if they wanted to really like get value out of it. You know, they could do it in Korea. They're going to do it outside. Every esports organizer is not going to be hosting local events in NA physically as much as they can. They want to avoid that. Well, when I say NA, I'm going to specifically say United States here because I think, you know, maybe it's a little bit better in Canada, but like realistically, outside of North America, you want to do it in Asia right now. So, there is a pathway in my mind, and it sucks, but the only realistic pathway, and to kind of piggyback on what you were mentioning about last chance qualifier, is if an OCE team does well in hyping through the last chance qualifier and beats kind of middle of the pack NA teams that are in the same kind of boat here on hyping, like so we are the team on hyping, then we could go to a champions event somewhere in Asia where you could get clearance. You could get clearance from the government to go because Legacy managed to do that. Theory are convinced they could have done that as well to go to South Korea, and I'm on board with that. I'm 100% in belief of the fact that they could have made that happen. So I think it is possible to see an Australian team in champions, but the road is just going to be insanely hard.
Right.
I guess now the big question is that I'm going to pose to everyone here is where to from here? Because there's enough of us talking about the VCT and being like, well, OCE doesn't have a spot. Well, yes, we don't have a direct spot, but there's still a chance. And Riders are now pledged their commitment that they are going to run domestic tournaments. So I guess I'm going to start with you, Magnet, although that you're dipping now as a player, but you're still looking at staying in as perhaps a coach, commentator, observer, something. Where do you want to see the scene go from here?
I'm kind of worried that there's a very limited international pathway for OCE as it stands, even with this single slot thing. The big issue that I see with it is domestically, there is definitely a market and there's interest, but I'm worried that it's not going to be anything bigger than what we're already seeing as far as like frequency of competitions and prize pools and everything goes. And I don't think it's that feasible or that realistic for organizations to give players salaries where they can go from working a full-time job to just working a part-time job or quitting a job altogether to focus on the game professionally. I think that even with this pathway thing that's coming out, I can't see a world where that's going to mean players can actually pursue the game professionally inside of the region. And you know, that's what we want to do. So I think it's still we have to wait and see what the news is, but I don't think that anything's going to change that much personally.
What do you think, Racket?
It's a hard one to dissect. I think it's the very first initial like response that I had in my head. You know, I was obviously very doubtful. I was very confused initially as to what to think about it. You know, reading the fine line, but you know, beneath the print saying that we have to qualify through NA. It was obviously a huge bump in the road for a lot of us. But I think, you know, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's sort of like, I'm going to give a weird analogy. So the analogy I'm going to give is like back when I used to coach, and people ask me what is like the easiest way to climb, and my first response would be, don't like pretend your teammates aren't there and focus on yourself because you're the only variable that you can control, right? You always want to like be in control of what you can do personally. So bring that like philosophy in line with what's happening right now. We can sit here and cry all we want. Realistically, yes, it is a bit of a bump. But I think, I mean, and I'm sure Avril's going to have his long speech, quite soon about this. But we have to stand strong as a region. We have to prove that we are, you know, worthy to wield the sword of Excalibur, and we need to stand strong. And we've shown that we can have responses. We can have an outcry, and we're a very passionate region. It's just about developing ourselves and being the best that we possibly can to be recognized as one of the best to compete.
All right. Well, how long is your essay, Kev?
I'm just counting the words right now. Submissions is due. So, A couple of things I'll piggyback on real quick is what Racket said is absolutely correct. Is you need to be able to look at what you have control over and what you don't. And as far as we all know, unless new information is presented very soon, and I'll just say this for now, by the way, on that topic, is this is kind of why I want to do the shows on Wednesday anyway, because news like this drops today. You know, if we used to do this show like the day before, and we'd always miss out on the news. But point aside is you need to look at what the factors are and what you can and can't control, because right now complaining is, you know, you're venting, you're getting it off your chest. That's one thing. Asking questions like, well, why aren't we included in Southeast Asia, or why is it like this, or why that, or these kind of things, they're all valid questions. But at the end of the day, I don't think the situation is going to change for 2021. It's very unlikely. Look, I'm not going to say it's impossible. Very unlikely. If it does, great, congratulations. But the only way this gets quote unquote fixed for OCE is if there is a direct invite route to go to Masters and or Champions. And what I mean by that is, like, if you had domestic tournaments in Oceania that directly get you a seed into Masters without having to play on 180 ping, and you get to directly go to a LAN, because Masters aren't meant to be LANs, these are meant to be majors here. Whether they can achieve that yet with COVID, we'll have to see how that goes. But the idea is it's meant to be a LAN. So if you can get to LAN directly without having to play on high ping, that is the end goal. But if we can't get there yet, then you will have no choice unless you want to fly to NA and play from there, which you're not going to do. You're going to not have a choice except to play on high ping. So accept that right now. Understand that right now, if you want to make it in Valorant as an Oceanic player, you need to start grinding NA from today. I posted a tweet, not a tweet, a comment in the O's Valorant Pro Discord, which if you're not part of that Discord, shout out to them. You want to get there, you're doing yourself a disservice to not be part of the, you know, I think the greater community in OCE. But essentially, to just run the bullet points on that one, you have to take what you can out of this situation and make the best of it. This is the kind of moment now where you have to decide, is this for me or not? Because you are either on the seek.com.au grind or you're going to be on the Valorant grind. You need to choose very quickly which one it's going to be. And if you don't want to be pursuing international success in Valorant, you're going to have to be very okay with just taking domestic titles or taking some domestic success, not going international, not playing on 180 ping, and you're going to be super okay with that, knowing that your limit, your goal, your ceiling is going to be OCE. But if you're a player that's not going to be satisfied by that and you think you can go higher, you think you can do better, then I applaud you. I really insist and encourage you to start playing NA today, now. Get used to the ping, start grinding NA, play against NA teams if you can, scrim NA teams if you can, play their ranked, grind their rank, make a name for yourself, make your name pop up on those tweets, on those Valorant tweets where they show the top 100 players of NA. Trust me, if you're an OS player on high ping, you make it on there, that's a big deal. That's top 100 players, right? We've seen how players and teams have succeeded on high ping in the past. Yes, I understand it's going to be different. It's not going to be the same as, you know, games like CS where, you know, CS and Valorant where the ping disadvantage might be a little bit more. It's going to be a lot more actually. But you look at other games, you look at other players, it hasn't stopped them. This has never been different for OC. Understand that if you have just been part of esports now and you think this sucks, it's always sucked. It's always sucked in this kind of way for OCE. And unfortunately, we're not getting the support again. We just have to fight harder. We're going to have to fight harder again. You're going to have to make the same journey that past players and past teams in OCE have had to make every single time in every other esport. And that is, unfortunately, for you to have to play on high ping. You're going to have to scrim on high ping. You're going to have to compete on high ping. You're going to have to do that, because if you don't do that, there's not an alternative. The alternative is you either go get a job or you accept that your ceiling is going to be OCE and you will not progress above OCE. So you need to get grinding. You need to take NA seriously. You need to do that now. So that's going to be, you know, you look at the situation, it's bad, and we're either going to unite properly and improve and get something out of this. And to get something out of this, to get to the end goal, to make OCE better, someone has to step up. A team, a player, everyone, as many people as possible have to step up, play through the system, get good, win tournaments, win NA, qualify through NA, play a Masters, get to LAN. If you can get to LAN on high ping and do well and place well, you will get the attention, you will do the damage, and you will get what I think OCE is deserving of. And that is exactly what I've seen in past esports, where singular teams have been able to do that. Blank esports for Overwatch. Overwatch would be an entirely different landscape at OCE if it wasn't for one team that decided they were going to go play a career, to even live in Taiwan and to play in those tournaments and really put OCE on the map. OCE would probably not have contenders today, in my honest opinion, if it wasn't for Blank Esports really doing the damage overseas. Every single team from any esports that's done the damage overseas, that's the shining beacon you need to look towards now. And that's the kind of goal that everyone needs to start striving towards. If you can't do that, then you need to get out of the way for other people that can.
And I would like to add on to that point as well, is that in OCE esports, it's been like this for a while. And there are a lot of people in the scene who really want to see players succeed. And myself included, I do the best that I can through the work that I do for Snowball and other publications to really tell the story of players making it big internationally. And I take great pride in every interview that I do of a player that started out in OCE and manages to make it to the big leagues. I think from here now, there is no point in the region trying to get all doom and gloom itself and blowing itself from the inside. This is really the time where the region itself needs to unite and get behind our best players, our best teams, our best scene, and really try to make Valorant something we can actually pursue in the future. We've seen change in other esports where if someone has done well internationally, paths will be made for us. Chris Greeley, everyone looked at the first Chris Greeley tweet today where he said, there's going to be domestic events in OC, don't worry. What that second tweet said is actually the one that resounded with me the most. And that was where he said that OCE is now potentially and more than likely getting a direct invite slot to the TFT Worlds for Set 4. Now, that might not sound like a lot, considering Teamfight Tactics is a completely different game, but that shows that Riot is willing to give direct OCE seeds to teams that perform well in international events and regions that perform well in international events. Because in TFT, we were given 4 slots in a 32-player NA invite for 2 slots at the TFT World Championships, and one of our players managed to make it. He made it through that NA grind, and he made it out the other side, and because Obro performed so well, OC is now getting considered for a permanent direct invite. If teams perform well in Valorant, if our Exos go overseas, if our Orders go overseas, or if they even perform well locally and they manage to make a storm at an international LAN some point down the line, those are the guys that are going to guarantee us a future for Valorant. It's not going to be in 2021, but in 2022 and beyond, there is going to be hope for this region if we manage to unite and get behind our best players. So I guess the message that I really want to send off about this whole thing is yes, it fucking sucks that OCE got snubbed again, but it's not new, and we've dealt with this before. What we can do as a scene is make sure to build each other up. Be sure to promote OCE players on Twitter. Be sure to really hype up the events that we do get, and be sure to really showcase what this region is made about. Because, we didn't send Rocket League or CSGO or PUBG teams overseas because they were bad. We sent them over because they were good. And we've got to show that OCE Valorant is good. And I always draw back to this one comment that Plix made on a few episodes running back ago, where he said that the best OCE team, EXO and Order, could beat anyone in NA except for maybe the top 2 teams. And now we've got to show that's actually the reality.
Yep. This is the time to step up. This is not the time to step down. You can be sad, you can be doom and gloom, but that won't be helpful. This is the time where everyone has to get past their levels of grief really quickly, get into that acceptance zone, and then get grinding, because this is going to be the defining moment of OCE esports for Valorant. I've seen this in other esports where this is the time when you have to understand that we're either going to make this happen or we're not. And making this happen makes it happen for everyone. So this is either going to be the biggest step up ever for a team or group of players, and to really do the damage, or it's not going to happen at all. And I've seen it happen plenty of times. If history repeats itself, we're going to be just fine. But it requires people to really band together, to have that confidence in there, and to use this as motivation. If you're frustrated right now, if you're saddened by this news, if you feel really upset by that, use that as your fuel. That anger is your fuel to really motivate yourself and improve and to get what you deserve, because you're not going to get it handed to you. You ain't going to just get it for free. This is where the OS grind comes back in. This is where, to get out of OS jail, you're going to have to break those bars open. You're going to have to really, really prove your worth and muscle your way out, because no one's going to do it for you. And this is what it takes. This is what it's about. Adam from Overwatch Contenders, he was like a top player on NA rank, playing on very high ping, like 180 ping for months, and he eventually makes Overwatch League. You look at the success stories, you look at Renegades, you look at where teams have succeeded. You look at the fact that Atletico got second at GLL for PUBG, and that did enough damage. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if that gave PUBG Corp a bit of a kick in the pants to say, hey, OCE needs something here, and we got stuff done. So this is what we need in the region. This is what needs to happen. And you guys, everyone's responsible. We need to make this happen together. But if you're a player right now that's on the fence, you have to ask yourself, can I do this? Is this something that we can do? Then if the answer is yes, you better start fucking doing this because this is what we need.
Any final remarks, Magnet?
Mate, I can't even think of anything to add on to Averil's bloody speech there, mate. That was impressive. But it's totally right. You know, you only can control what you can control. And if you spend too long getting distracted about, you know, boohoo, we're not getting what we deserve as a region or anything, then you're not going to get shit. It comes down to, you know, those top teams need to prove to Riot and they need to prove to the rest of the world that we do deserve those opportunities before we get the opportunities. And if we're not there yet, then either we can cry about how we're not getting the chances and then we'll get nothing, or those top teams, those EXOs, those orders, they can fight. They can fight it, they can show that they're worth. And then, you know, I don't think there's anything that says that they're never going to be able to make it to that level, because it's possible. It's just how hard do they want to work.
Anything from yourself, Racket?
No, it's a very powerful topic, and it's making me feel things in my heart personally. But yeah, I mean, there's not too much I can add for this personally. I think, you know, the thing that really struck me as well, like I think everyone has the right to be upset and mad, but just converting that energy into motivation and trying to be the best that you possibly can be, control what you can control. That's going to be the key here. And we've done it in so many different esports before. Rocket League, PUBG, you know, we have CSGO. It's very, very possible within Valorant. We have a bunch of talented players. Let's go.
Yeah. And with that, I think that's all we have for Run It Back tonight. Thank you so much for coming on, Magnet, for having a chat with us. It feels so long ago that we were talking about you leaving Pants Down and before all this VCT stuff happened. But hey, mate, where can we find you in the future?
Twitter. I'll still be shit posting on Twitter all the time. Besides that, like, just Twitter, honestly. I'll keep posting all my updates and all my swimming stuff on there. Because, you know, Valorant and the whole OC esports community, it's like a second family to me. I love all you guys, and, you know, I want to keep us all in the loop. So follow me. Haha.
Well, mate, best of luck this weekend with the national champs, and also hopefully Tokyo 21 comes along and you can smash your 49-second record, because that's a barrier you've wanted to break for a long time, and I hope that you can make it happen next year.
Fuck yeah. Thanks, boys.
That's all we have for tonight's episode of Run It Back. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a rather deep episode. If you want to catch more Valorant news, be sure to follow Snowball Esports on Twitter. You can also check us out at snowballesports.com, where we have news, interviews, and more. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.